If you struggle with shame and self-judgment, then this episode's for you. Today, we're talking about the second arrow. So the concept of shooting yourself with a second arrow comes from a Buddhist concept that refers to our negative experiences that we have throughout our daily life. The first arrow represents the pain of the challenge, or in this case, the pain of the addiction that we have, while the second arrow is the additional suffering we cause ourselves by responding with negative emotions or self-blame. So let's talk about 5 things. So this first arrow is when we have an urge or as we struggle. It's as if we get shot with an arrow, right in the shoulder, or taking an arrow to the knee. And this urge or the temptation to view porn can hit you out of nowhere, and it's like you get sniped. Get with that second arrow. Now, sometimes this first arrow that we get hit with, this urge or the temptation, is something that we don't have a lot of control over, right? And so when we do get hit with this first arrow, you have 2 options in this analogy. You can go get the help you need, go take this arrow out, or what a lot of us do is we shoot ourselves with a second arrow instead, which is kind of a funny concept. We don't have a lot of control over the first arrow that we get hit with. Like I said, sometimes it comes out of nowhere, sometimes you get sniped from a tree. But from here, you have 2 options. You can go get the help that you need, and you can take this first arrow out, or you can shoot yourself again with the second arrow, which is generally what happens a lot of the times when it comes to addiction. So the second arrow represents the self-judgment and shame that comes along with pornography addiction, especially right after you PMO. You get this big wave of shame and guilt, and your brain telling yourself, man, I'm so sorry. This is going to be the last time. We're done, I promise. Or you may have thoughts or feelings that say something along the lines of, you can do better, you suck, you're an addict, what have you done, you're worthless. And the Buddhists refer to these experiences as getting shot with a second arrow, or shooting yourself with a second arrow. Because although we don't have a lot of control over this first arrow that we get hit with, we can have more control over this second arrow that we tend to shoot ourselves with all the time, whether it be in the knee or the foot. So instead of addressing the addiction with compassion and empathy, we tend to become trapped in a cycle of self-blame and guilt, which, as we know, isn't helpful. It can lead to feelings of powerlessness and hopelessness, right? Like you're thinking, man, this is never going to be fixed. I'm never going to be able to get the help that I need. I'm never going to be able to become the person that I want. And this emotional suffering that we cause ourselves can make us kind of retreat and not to get the help that we need. And it just reinforces this entire cycle that we've been in for the past couple of years. So going forward this week, one thing that can be really helpful is, well, first, we need to break the cycle of awareness. We need to recognize that the second arrow is a self-imposed affliction that we're giving ourselves whenever we PMO. So as we've reinforced this cycle, right, we get hit with the first arrow, sniped from the tree, and then we shoot ourselves with the second arrow, saying like, you idiot, why were you standing there where that person in the tree could hit you? Wouldn't that be funny? Like, you just think about that. Let's say you get hit with the first arrow, someone's trying to take you out from a tree, and then they see you take your bow and arrow and shoot yourself in the foot and say, you are such an idiot. Why were you standing there where someone could hit you from the tree? Like, it's just silly to think about. So we need to break this cycle, and we do this by awareness. Next time you have a PMO, you realize, okay, I PMO'd, I got hit with this first arrow. Now, it's not going to be helpful if I hit myself again with a second arrow. So recognizing this pattern that you fall into, and that shooting yourself with a second arrow isn't going to be any more helpful going forward. By practicing self-compassion, by practicing empathy for yourself and realizing that you are a person who is worthy of love, you're a person who is worthy of becoming the person that they want and need to be. By practicing the self-awareness, you can reduce the suffering that actually fuels this cycle. So instead of focusing on punishing yourself after a PMO, it's going to be helpful to focus more on your healing. Acknowledge what happened, acknowledge that, hey, I PMO'd, but you don't have to hit yourself again with a second arrow with judgment and shame. And over time, as you're more compassionate with yourself, it's going to allow you to do what you need to do moving forward. You're going to be able to go a lot farther in recovery if you have both of your kneecaps. So there's no need to shoot yourself in your knee whenever you have an urge or whenever you PMO. Have compassion for yourself and keep moving forward. Remember, the most important step you can take is the next one. So there's no point in focusing on this stumble that you just had. Learn from it, yes, and then get up, brush yourself off, and move on. So as you go throughout this week, think about that. If you PMO, don't beat yourself up. Have self-compassion, have love for yourself, and recognize that you are trying. You are trying, and you have what it takes to actually do this. You have what it takes to become the person that you've always wanted to be. That doesn't mean that in this recovery process you're going to be perfect. You are going to stumble. You may hit yourself with a second arrow every now and again. But realize that you are headed in the right direction, and as long as you're taking the next step towards recovery and becoming the person that you want, then that is what's important in the end. Okay, that's it today. Short episode. Have a good week and try not to hit yourself with a second arrow whenever you PMO.